We're absolutely drowning in advice these days, especially when it comes to leadership, self-help,
Oh,
all
oh,
that.
totally. It's everywhere.
Yeah, like a constant stream of do this, 5 steps to success, the secret to whatever.
Right.
And yet people still feel stuck, leaders still struggle. It makes you wonder um, if getting the right advice was really the fix. Wouldn't we all be
Yeah.
fixed by now?
It's a really good point. A bit of a puzzle, isn't it? Because if just having information solved everything, well, the internet would have made things a lot simpler.
Exactly. But it often feels more overwhelming, not less.
Mm-hmm.
And that exact puzzle is what we're diving into today. What if the answer isn't more advice? What if it's something we already have?
Okay.
What if the power isn't in finding the perfect answer, but maybe asking the right question?
That's exactly the core idea in the article we're looking at. It digs into the insights of a transformation coach named Scott Haber.
Haber, right.
Yeah, and his perspective is pretty counterintuitive. It blends ideas from business, leadership, but also like deeper stuff about healing and who we are. Haber's work, as the article presents it, suggests the way forward is often inward.
Inward, through questions, not instructions.
Precisely, through asking really sharp, precise questions.
Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive then. Let's unpack this idea from the article. Why are questions, according to Haber, potentially more powerful than advice?
Yeah, let's get into it.
And explore that connection the article makes between our minds, our bodies, and this wisdom we supposedly already have inside.
Sounds good. We'll definitely explore Haber's perspective as laid out in the source.
Great. So the central argument, Haber's main point in the article, it's that leaders usually aren't stuck because they lack information, right?
Right. That's the key premise. The article argues it's often more about lacking the courage to trust what they actually already know.
Which flips the script, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If knowing isn't the problem, then
Right.
just giving more advice, basically just transferring knowledge.
It misses the point.
Yeah. And according to Haber's view in the article, giving advice can even create dependency.
Dependency. How so?
Well, it keeps people looking outside themselves for the next answer, the next fix,
Yeah.
always waiting for someone else.
Ah, okay. So his approach, using these precision questions instead, how does that work? How does it activate, like, agency?
Because a really good question doesn't just give you the answer. It makes you find it.
Yeah.
It forces you to look at your own knowledge, your experience, your gut feeling. The article quotes Haber saying something really striking.
Oh, it's that.
If all it took was getting the right advice, no one would be struggling.
Wow. Yeah, that hits home. Because it's true, isn't it? We know we should eat better or exercise or have that tough conversation at work.
Mm-hmm. We often have the information.
We know the good habits, the logical next step.
Mm.
But knowing it isn't the hard part. Doing it is. Exactly.
Right.
So Haber's philosophy, as the article describes it, isn't about piling on more knowledge. It's about helping people uncover and, importantly, act on what they already know deep down.
Even if they're kind of avoiding it.
Especially if they're avoiding it, consciously or not.
Okay, so this ties into the idea that we have this inherent wisdom. The article says, referencing Haber, something like 90% of the time, people already have the info they need.
Yeah, 90%. Sounds like a lot, right?
It does, given how often we feel completely lost. So if we have the info, what's blocking it?
Well, the article explains it's usually not a true knowledge gap. It's unconscious filtering.
Unconscious filtering. What does that actually mean? Filtering out what?
Haber's quoted explaining it like this. People are unconsciously filtering out data to avoid having to face truths that have consequences they're uncomfortable with.
Whoa. So the data is there in front of us, maybe someone told us, but we're subconsciously ignoring the bits that make us feel uncomfortable.
Or scared. Pretty much. Like turning certain puzzle pieces face down because we don't like the picture they're starting to make.
That's a powerful image. And the article mentions some Harvard Business Review research supporting this. That questions unlock value, innovation, trust.
Exactly. Questions help bypass those filters we put up. They force us to look at the whole picture, not just the convenient parts.
And the benefit, according to the article, when you stop filtering.
You see the whole chessboard, as the source puts it. Your options expand beyond just avoiding the scary stuff. You see all the moves, even the ones that require courage.
Okay, so it's about using all the data, especially the tough stuff. The article gives that example about VCs and founders.
Right. Experienced VCs aren't just looking for the smooth pitch. They have hard questions because they want to see if the founder can handle uncomfortable truths.
Can they speak honestly, even when it's scary?
Exactly, because that shows they can deal with reality, the full chessboard, not just the safe squares. It signals resilience.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But if this filtering is unconscious, how do we even know you're doing it? Our brain might just rationalize it away, right?
Good question. And the article suggests looking beyond just the rational mind. It says the body often knows first.
The body. How?
Well, Haber, according to the source, looks for physical signs of this avoidance. Things like thinking in black and white all the time. Good, bad, right, wrong. That's a kind of mental tension.
Okay.
Or just visible physical tension, tight jaw, hunched shoulders, or answers that feel purely intellectual, totally disconnected from any feeling or gut instinct.
Just head talk.
Exactly. And Haber has this quote, "To close down to the full data set, we have to constrict our body."
Constrict our body. Wow, so there's a real physical component to filtering out information.
Yeah, the article touches on somatic intelligence, how our brain, specifically the insular cortex, processes signals from our body. Our physical state is constantly feeding us information.
So that gut feeling, that physical tightness.
Yeah.
It's not just random noise, it's data.
It's data. And Haber's view, as presented, is that using this full-body intelligence is actually the natural way to navigate difficulty. The real pain, he argues, often comes not from the difficult emotion itself, but from resisting it.
Resisting the feeling, like tensing up against it.
Exactly. He uses that great analogy in the source about being out in the cold.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Most of the suffering isn't just the cold temperature itself. It's the tensing, the clenching, the wishing you were somewhere else, all that effort fighting the feeling of cold.
Right. The resistance is exhausting and painful in itself.
Totally. The cold is just cold, but the struggle against it makes it way worse.
So applying that, if leaders stop resisting the cold of a hard truth or a difficult emotion, what happens?
The article suggests things get clearer. You're not distorting reality anymore to avoid feeling something. And emotions become valuable signals, not just obstacles. It's like that cold plunge idea, intense maybe, but clarifying.
Okay, embracing the full experience, even the uncomfortable parts, leads to clarity.
That's the idea. You stop wasting energy on suppression.
This leads to another really interesting idea from Haber in the article, challenging the whole concept of being stuck.
Yeah, this is a big one. He argues that what we call stuck often isn't really about being unable to move. It's actually fear.
Fear. Fear of what?
Fear of the consequences we expect will come if we make the next move.
Let me get that straight. The quote is something like, what we call stuck is often just a fear of the consequences we expect.
To come with making our next move.
Yeah. So the reason we don't move isn't because we don't know what to do.
It's because we're scared of how it will feel or what will happen after. The article mentioned another coach, Barrett Brooks, saying something similar about entrepreneurs.
Yes, that they often know the strategy but struggle with the emotional price tag of actually doing it.
Like the layoff example in the source.
Exactly. The leader knows, logically, layoffs are needed, but they feel paralyzed, stuck. Haber's perspective suggests they aren't stuck on the action. They're avoiding the feeling, the guilt, the sadness, the difficult conversations that come with it. Ah, so the emotional hurdle is the real roadblock, even if you see the path intellectually, like that toddler example.
Right. A toddler learning to walk doesn't sit there analyzing the risk of falling and decide they're stuck, because falling might hurt. They just try, they fall, they feel it, they get up.
If they waited for intellectual certainty about never falling, they'd never walk.
Yeah.
Movement requires facing consequences.
It requires moving through the fear, not waiting for it to disappear.
And constantly avoiding those feelings, those consequences. The article says that takes a real toll, right? It connects it to neuroscience.
It does. The source explains that when we constantly avoid processing an emotion, the brain sees that unresolved state as a low-level chronic threat.
Like an alarm bell always ringing softly in the background.
Exactly. It keeps the fight-or-flight system simmering.
And the long-term effects mentioned are serious. Adrenal fatigue, burnout, anxiety, depression.
And suppressing those feelings isn't passive. It takes constant energy. It becomes wired in, almost part of your identity.
It's so draining. But Haber's approach, as described, is kind of the opposite, isn't it? He suggests turning up the volume on triggers.
Yeah, leaning into the trigger. Which sounds terrifying, I know.
Totally. Why would you want to feel more of something you're trying to avoid?
Because, as he puts it, that trigger point is where all the gold is. The idea is to Intentionally intensify the feeling in a supported way so the nervous system can finally process and release the stuck emotion. Move through it, not around it.
So confront it head on, let the storm pass through you, essentially.
That's the concept, and the article mentions the results. Real, lasting change, a calmer nervous system, less fight or flight, even quieting that inner critic.
Because the emotion isn't a lingering threat anymore.
Right. The energy used to suppress it gets freed up.
Okay, this seems really central to Haber's Do Better Work workshop mentioned in the article. It sounds different from typical training.
Very different. The focus isn't just on skills, it's on healing your relationship with yourself. It uses the tensions that naturally come up in business
As gateways.
as gateways to heal those underlying patterns within you. It's not fix the business problem so you feel better. It's use the business problem to heal yourself, then you can handle the business better.
That's a fundamental shift.
Yeah.
It challenges that common idea of I'm not enough, I need fixing.
Exactly. Haber's perspective, according to the article, starts from I've always been enough, things just got in the way.
And this creates a virtuous feedback loop.
Yeah. Work brings up tension. Feeling the tension helps you heal. Healing improves your work until the next tension point arises. It's continuous growth.
Reframing challenges as opportunities, basically.
Pretty much.
Now, connecting this to burnout, the article links that directly to not setting boundaries. Keeping yourself in that constant state of tension.
Yes. Burnout is like the system finally screaming, enough. But the irony is, while not setting boundaries leads to burnout.
Actually setting them feels terrifying.
Totally. Like jumping off a cliff, the article
Right.
says, because you're changing a familiar, even if unhealthy, dynamic.
And it mentions that million paper cuts of slow resentment analogy.
Yeah, that's what happens when you keep saying yes when you mean no. It just erodes everything slowly.
Haber's quote on that is powerful, too, about resenting work or partners.
Because their inability to say no has shaped the dynamic and kept them trapped. It's that feeling of being trapped by your own fear of saying no.
Which really highlights why facing the fear of setting a boundary is so crucial. The outcome, the article suggests, is positive either way.
Right. Setting the boundary gives the other person a chance to meet you where you actually need them to be.
And if they can't or won't.
Then you know. As Haber concludes, either way, it's great news. You get clarity, freedom from that corrosive tension.
Okay, this all seems to loop back to Haber's core message. Inviting leaders to live in the question, don't rush for the easy answer.
Exactly. He makes this distinction. When you make your questions things to be managed and fixed, you end up with a business that needs to be managed and fixed. Quick fixes, superficial solutions.
Right. But the alternative?
When your business is a question to be lived, Haber says, it becomes the ultimate teacher. It helps you grow as a person.
So tension, conflict, uncertainty, they're not just problems anymore.
They're information, guides for your own growth, showing where you're still filtering or resisting. The article even suggests leaders can start to get excited by conflict.
Excited, really.
Because they know that facing the tension is where the freedom is.
It really turns conventional leadership wisdom on its head, doesn't it? It's not about having all the answers.
Not at all. The article's final takeaway is really that the wisdom, the clarity, it's already inside us. We just need better questions, more courageous questions to unlock it.
And the willingness to actually listen to the answers, even the uncomfortable ones, using our whole selves, mind and body.
Guided by real curiosity, not just fear of consequences.
Okay, so let's just pull the main threads together from this deep dive into the article featuring Scott Haber's ideas. We started with how advice often fails, creating dependency.
Right. While questions empower us by accessing the wisdom we, like 90% of the time, already have.
But that wisdom gets hidden by unconscious filtering, driven by fear of uncomfortable truths and consequences.
And our bodies give us clues about this filtering. The real pain is often in the resistance to feelings, not the feelings themselves.
Yeah, and that feeling of being stuck. Often just fear of the emotional fallout of the next step.
Which leads to burnout if we constantly avoid those feelings. But leaning into triggers, processing them, brings healing and calm.
Making better work about healing ourselves, using business tension as the catalyst.
And finding freedom through boundaries, which feels scary, but ultimately gives crucial clarity.
All leading back to living in the question, letting challenges be teachers rather than just problems to fix quickly.
It really is a profound shift away from external fixes towards internal exploration. The power is already within you.
It makes you think how much energy we spend searching outside.
When the most direct path might just be turning inward.
And asking the questions we've been avoiding. So, Thinking about everything we've covered from this article, here's a final thought for you to mull over. If Scott Haber is right, and the wisdom you need is truly already inside you, what's the one question you're most afraid to ask yourself right now?